You comfortable?
Yeah.
Good. Let's make it uncomfortable. Alrighty. Oh no, I've pulled the mic out of the mic stand. Haha. Goodness me. We're amateur. We used to be really good at this, remember? Hey, what up? This is Conversations in CX, which I think is a good title for it.
Yeah.
CXC results. Let's talk about CX, baby.
CX on the beach.
CX on... We're really far from the beach.
We should put some sand down. Cool. So I'm Rosie Elliott-Welch. I am a co-founder of Deltastring Ltd. My past is management, retail management, customer service, and everything that goes in with being kind of in that industry, like recruitment. At the moment, I work on a government project. I work with end clients and also do forecasting.
I am Nico Boyce, the Zendesk engineer, co-founder of Deltastring Ltd, deltastring.com, Nico at deltastring.com. Drop me a message if you're having Zendesk nightmares, need to integrate your systems. I see 2 different SaaS products. I make them talk to each other. That's how I roll. If your agents are sat there asking for more screens, if they're like fingers on the left hand and moulded into the shape of Control-C, Control-V, then you need what we do.
Yeah.
Because what we do is we come in, we link those systems, we automate all that stuff. Maybe, we can use a trigger to send a webhook to send that piece of data over to your back-end system so that they don't need to be copying and pasting those numbers anymore.
Nope.
Maybe you need a macro that has a change trigger that then checks something in another system that comes back and tells you on the ticket in an internal note. So like, did my payment go through? And the agent would normally need to copy like the account number and then go and log into maybe Stripe or something and check what happened.
It's long.
Cut that out.
Yeah.
Cut that out. Maybe when you do that, they even need to type the reply to the customer. Maybe if it's all fine, they could just like do the thing that makes that check over there and returns on the ticket. Maybe it could just send that update saying, hey, yeah, we've checked and your payment's all gone through. You should receive your thing later. If it doesn't turn up by Friday, give us a buzz.
Yeah.
We can do that. We can automate the hell out of your stuff.
You can save your employee sanity and money.
Yeah. They could like stop having to do the kind of, I don't know, like live long and prosper with their left hand on the Alt tab, Control-C, Control business that they're just doing all day.
Yeah.
And instead they could just be going, yeah, hey customer, that's a really cool time you're having with our product.
Yeah. Lovely.
It's the sort of thing we do. Deltastring.com. Get your stuff better. We're done with this rubbish CX. Fantastic. And Deltastring, Rosie, you head up the kind of business and operations side of it, whereas myself, it's the sort of engineering and strategy. But we both have quite wide-ranging backgrounds across different sides of both B2B and B2C kind of operations, contract work, head office and sort of, fronting up to the public.
Yeah.
All around business. So yeah, we're just going to chat about, we're going to keep it non-technical today. We're not going to dive into the kind of building Zendesk applications, integrations, but we're really going to look at the architecture, the process architecture, the design of how you do things with your customer-facing teams, whether that is B2B, B2C, what challenges you can have, and different things you and I have overcome in our careers, both as Deltastring, our company, but also on other projects.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering, you've worked, with some big-name retailers, right?
Yep.
One thing that a lot of people find quite challenging with growing a support team is actually the getting the bodies, right? And I personally find recruiting for support teams to always be something that businesses find very challenging.
Yeah.
It's easy to get wrong.
For sure.
And so what are your top tips? What are good times where you found real strong people that maybe are from backgrounds that are unconventional, or conversely, people who looked great on paper and, without being specific, challenges you faced?
Yeah. So you're completely right. Recruitment is incredibly tricky to get correct, and I think it's something that sometimes comes with just experience. But I think there's so many things that tell you how to recruit. There's always like a rule book and stuff you have to follow, and application forms and various tests, or I don't know. I think what I found mostly was it's never, you should never have something prescriptive with recruitment. I don't think that works. I think that really blocks out a lot of people who are very talented when you're following a step-by-step process to the letter. I think you're always going to have stuff that can't be changed if you're working in a regulated situation. You're going to need to do checks and, of course, legal checks. But once a lot of people pass that stuff, so you're left with a wide pool of people. I think some of the best people I worked with who are people who got things wrong in the interview, but it's the way that they responded to that. I think a lot of it is listening to what they're not saying, or what they're trying to get at. It's about how people behave when they're put into a difficult situation. Really figuring out kind of if they did make mistakes or didn't do it right, could you work with that? Can you see something there that you want to work with and train? And is there that spark there? Not to say that some people are incredibly good at interviewing. And you would always find people that just gave you the best interview and you come back buzzing, being like, this is the person. And then when they get down to it, they're not the right fit. So I think it's a very fluid process. It's about tailoring it to you. Probably ignoring a lot of guidance your company is giving you. Sometimes you know your own business the best at the end of the day, but it should be down to you can really picture that person there and finding what they're going to bring to your team, just in spite of them not being the exact fit on paper.
I think a thing I've seen you do a lot of through your career is take someone who was just looking for something to be doing, needed to pay the bills, right? Mm-hmm. And actually you are able to take them and find that angle for them in what you're doing that turns them into, not merely, an enthusiastic person who's going to turn up and do a good job, but actually an advocate, a passionate advocate for what you're doing. And I know even today, recently we ran into someone who previously worked for you, and that person still had that enthusiasm for the brand that you instilled in them, and they're long out of that company, and what a crazy situation, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was really nice, and also to hear that they still were in touch with people they'd worked with at the time, even though that must have been almost 10 years ago. That was really nice and really validating. And you're right. It's about that person wanting this to be part of their life for the right reasons. Yes, everyone needs to pay the bills, but it needs to be job satisfaction. And I think it's about that through the recruitment process. Would that person get job satisfaction from what they're doing with you? Because if they won't, then it's not fair on either of you. To take that person on. That's the biggest thing I think you can give someone is job satisfaction and validation in their work. And if you're if you can't see that future, even though they might be the brightest and best, on paper when you interview, if you don't think that's going to happen, then it's just not the right fit from day one.
I think that's really interesting. I've had times where someone on paper wouldn't have been a good fit, but actually that different perspective they brought became really valuable. So I was in my previous career, I had a company in the hospitality sector and ran restaurants, pubs, festivals, catering gigs, that sort of thing under contract for some of the business top names. And one place I was operating on behalf of a chap who was a farmer, right? He had a beef farm and was looking at ways to establish his farm as real supplier of very premium meat. And the way he decided to do that was to establish a restaurant, right? That was just really focused on these really top quality steaks and what have you. And I interviewed someone for a kitchen role there who was a vegetarian, right? Didn't eat meat, and was quite anti it. The guy was looking for a job and was very, very talented. And in that situation, what we were able to do was actually go out, visit the farm, spend a day working with the farmhands and doing these jobs, moving the cattle, what have you. And I've never seen someone become such a passionate kind of advocate for a brand, so suddenly that just something clicked, and my colleague there really appreciated that what we were dealing with was very high welfare, very very proper, old-fashioned, but with modern technology and modern methods. But this organic, super high welfare, super premium meat, and he actually kind of considered this and became a real passionate enthusiast of what we were doing. And later I spoke to the farm owner in a meeting a couple of weeks later, and he was asking, how do I feel like this person's getting on? How do I feel like that person's getting on? He wanted talking through my team, and he had some concerns about different members and how they work together and what have you. And I said, what you have in this person is someone who won't eat other meat, but will eat the meat from your farm.
Yeah.
He gave that a go, and I said, you need to cultivate that, because what you have is someone who really believes in what you're doing to an extent that the other people enjoyed the work and got different aspects. I said, but the one person that really fundamentally believes in your mission is this person.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing to cultivate.
That is really interesting. I agree. I think I see some parallels in the company I worked for was very ethical, and that was their big, their mission. They had lots of statements, and it was very ethical. It was all handmade. The ingredients were the finest ingredients, but lots of people, including customers, that wasn't their. They just like the end products, and which is fine too. But some people had no idea about how, what went into the production of it. But some people were the other way around and were buying it because of that. And I found that in employees too. And it was, I think, taking a chance on those people that didn't really know much about the ethics. That will come in time as well, if they're on board for the right reasons and they're really engaged and they really put themselves in there, then you'll find that they'll speak about all aspects of it as well.
And having a mission, having a goal that your team can be excited to be pushing towards, can really be a motivating factor when times are tough, right? And all companies have times where they need to make changes or sort of have budgetary constraints, maybe system changes that are quite challenging, this and that. But when you have a kind of North Star mission, and it's coming up to 2025, and for a lot of companies that's going to be ESG, it's going to be DEI, it's going to be things that make a difference to the world around us. Maybe things that a lot of businesses I've worked with that recently have been focused on access, so for remote workers or people that live in different situations, having access to whether it's products or services. And when you have a team that really buy into what you're doing, frankly, it helps them get through the harder times easier. When you're in backlog, when you're up against it, when there's high pressure, when there's belt tightening, what have you, having a team that believe in what you're doing can get you over that hump really a lot easier.
Oh, I agree. I think that's vital. I think it's probably the most important kind of aspect of recruitment and finding the right people and surrounding yourself with people that are, they've got different, I don't know what the right word is, but each of them will have an aspect of the business or the mission that's the most important to them. But what needs to unite everyone is that, will to see it succeed, no matter on which bit is the most important to them. And I think that's where you're strongest, really. If you've got people that are passionate about different bits, but you're all coming together, then that's the ultimate key.
Something I always like to ask is, what is it that gets you through that hard day? What is it that that you've found has worked for you to achieve when it's been difficult? And that's right through from I need to recruit a bunch of chefs for an event, and it's going to be focused, it's going to be push, and I worked with a guy that really I brought in a chap who really then kind of became quite pivotal to the restaurant scene in that particular city, actually. And was brought into a lot of places to sort out problems, who hadn't had a kind of job at that level before, and it was finding really what worked there. And I found with this particular person was that they had that high motivation and that long view as well. And I remember that conversation. I'm saying, right, it's a bad day, challenges, this and that. What do you think about what gets you through this? And it's like, well, you have to provide that quality today. You have to hit those goals today and work through today to know that tomorrow is going to be better and the day after is going to be better. And then in the long term, that builds the reputation, that builds the loyalty, and just that passion for putting, in this case, good food on a plate. But I've seen it in call centres, and this passion for just making sure that the customer, when they hang up, they're going, God, that was good. If I have a problem again, I'll be happy to call them. I hope I speak to that person, actually. You know what I mean? And then they they speak on, and that grows the brand, right?
Oh, definitely. I think actually the most important thing that you're looking for is customers need to be validated. That's their number one thing, no matter in which industry you're in. Customers require validation. And no matter whether it's positive or it's about a complaint, that's the number one thing you need to achieve is making sure they are kind of seen and heard. Whether that's putting amazing food in front of them or dealing with something that's gone very wrong for them, they need to be listened to and respected, and that's your job. As a customer service, an agent or manager, is to make sure that's happening.
I mean, a couple of years ago, to turn it back to kind of the technical aspect of it, a couple of years ago, I was doing some work with a fantastic London-based financial technology company who probably won't mind me mentioning them. I was working with Hyperjar, and subsequently, I was at a conference where they were discussing the implementation of Ultimate AI, now Zendesk AI agents or something. That we all worked on that project, and it was really one of the first kind of big projects for Ultimate. And they used this to develop a case study, and great team there. Jake, who was kind of working under me and focusing on kind of growing out his Zendesk skills, and the support side of it as well with Dan. One thing that they said at this conference that stood out to me was that what they gained from bringing in the technology was actually not reducing headcount or trying to cut costs. It was a side effect because they were able to not kind of replace people, but actually they wanted to turn their support organization into guiding the product development, right? And as a startup that has a very innovative product, it meant that while the basic stuff of I can't get into my account, things like that, could be taken care of automatically through the work the data people at Ultimate did. What they were able to have their support agents doing was discussing customers of great use cases they'd found, or interesting kind of edge cases, weird challenges they were having, that the company was then able to focus on and go, actually, maybe we're solving this problem as much as that problem. And while there was kind of an interesting collision between the founder's vision and how people found themselves using the product. I think that this really informed where they were going with it, and it's been a long time since I worked there, and it's still a product I use certainly weekly. And a lot of that is because of their kind of customer-led development. You don't want to be dragged down a blind alley, but you get that all-round perspective when your agents are freed up to do excellent rather than bogged down by taking care of the kind of mundane processes. So we've discussed kind of recruitment, and another thing that I wanted to discuss today with yourself, Rosie, because I know this is a thing you're a real expert in, is how you measure excellence. Now, I was in a conversation with some LinkedIn contacts the other day where there was a bit of debate over how kind of hard KPIs and specific statistical targets marry up with maybe what you're necessarily actually achieving on the front line, and it's difficult. And I had a good call with someone just to get a coffee chat in about this following that, and I guess there's a real kind of difficulty at the moment in how do you measure what good is, and I feel sometimes with statistics you can lead yourself down a path that is actually away from what results in good outcomes for your customers.
I agree. I think that's defining what is a good outcome for your customer. I know in the business I've worked in, they've always had really hard KPIs, and my current job that I'm forecast every month, there are hard targets for that. But I don't think it's a good measure of success. Those figures and statistics are good when you need something, you need proof, you need buy-in from other places or other people. I think you need to decide what that good outcome looks like for a customer, because on paper it might look great, but what is the actual customer satisfaction, and how do you measure that? Because I feel that that's the biggest thing, as I talked about before, like customer validation, customer satisfaction. That's going to be the biggest thing for your business. You won't get more business if your customers are not satisfied. If your customer came in and spent thousands of pounds with you, but they're not going to come back, that's not a good win for you. And there's, it's probably an old wives' tale kind of about how people will tell 10 other people if they've had bad service with you, but they'll only tell one person if they had great service with you. But that's also true, especially I think in Britain, we like a moan. If you've had bad customer service, you're going to tell people, you're going to get on the internet, you're going to put a Google review about how they're bad. And that's very damaging. It's really hard to undo any of that work. If they've, you can't, it's very hard to change someone's mind if they've had difficult service with you. Even if you really try and put it right, you're still a bit tarnished in their opinion. And it will never be like, I had great customer service because they fixed this problem. It will be, they did okay. I complained and they did it right, I guess. So that was fine. It's never going to be gleaming again. So it's important to get it right with the customer first time. And where that comes into KPIs is deciding which of yours is the best indicator for customer satisfaction. So you'll have a lot of traditional ones. I guess in retail, you've always got things like conversion, like basket count, like all that kind of stuff. But I don't think you need to worry about that too much. I think it's really about finding the one that suits your purpose the most for now, and how do you get that insight into how you're perceived, because that's the big win. That's for long term. We were talking about measuring customer satisfaction, how tricky that can be, and how it takes a long time to do.
Yes.
And that I feel that a really easy way to do that is to measure your employee satisfaction. It's a lot easier to do that. And I think that you having happy, engaged, satisfied employees directly corresponds to good customer service. And I think that's a challenge for most businesses. So we went back to kind of the recruitment and how you get those right people in the right place to begin with, but how do you keep them there, and how retention costs much less
Yeah,
than recruitment and training.
that's absolutely true, and it's in fact very similar to the problem we were talking about earlier of customer retention versus sales.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, ultimately, the cheaper end of the wedge is to retain your best people and grow, develop, and keep them really engaged. And exactly the same is true of your customers. The best customers are the ones that have been with you a while and really love what you do, because they help you develop use cases. They give you feedback about where the product needs to go, whatever it might be that you do, whatever problem it is that you solve for your customers. They are the ones that have been there for you, and you know, you and they have grown together. You know.
Yeah, they've bought into you. You don't need to sell it to them again.
Yeah.
I feel like employee and customer satisfaction are two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
I just don't. I think you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
But it's how do you keep them, both of them, your customers and your employees, happy and engaged?
Do you think there's a strong argument for going back to your KPIs and actually, in a lot of cases, turning those inside out? What can we measure that's correlated with this, rather than, you know, how do we find a way to directly just ask this question? Actually, what questions lead you there? You know, sometimes the question you're asking isn't necessarily the best way to get the answer to that question. You know, and you can think of this, you know, when you're feeding children, you know, there's a difference between, you know, do you want more dinner, you know, and have you got room for cake, what have you? You know, ultimately you're asking, are you hungry?
Yeah.
You're going to get a very different answer if you're offering up sprouts versus if you're offering up sticky toffee pudding, right?
Yeah.
But you can do the same with both your team and with your end clients, in terms of finding out who's happy and what more do they want to achieve. You know, what's next for them, whether that's with your product or within your support organisation at the team you're at.
I agree, and I think that's the heart of it is growth. How do you facilitate that? I think employee development and growth is incredibly important in order to make sure people are still on your, you know, they're still on your train. They're still getting things from this. They want to go with you. And the customers, you know, are they happy and satisfied? Do they still trust you? Are they still convinced you're the right person for them to kind of lead them to the end goal? I feel, and yeah, we want to avoid churn in both scenarios. We don't want to keep hiring employees and training them. We want to keep that experience that we paid for at the end of the day, if you don't want to get in your feelings about it.
But also that advocacy and that relationship you've developed, you know, the people that know your product best are your longest standing employees and customers.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to develop that again from scratch.
Yeah, really hard. It can take such a long time to do. When I worked in retail, it could take 3 months to train someone up to a point where you would trust that they knew everything that they needed to know when talking about product to customers, and that they were going to convey the company in all the ways in which it wished to be. And 3 months is so much time and effort and money to lose simply because you didn't realise that someone wasn't happy with what they're doing. And when someone isn't happy and they're talking directly to customers, they have a direct impact on how you're perceived and the service in which they receive. So I don't know, it is tricky. We talked about incentives and how useful they are for employees, but I think it's harder, isn't it, to make them happy. I know you've been and worked with lots of companies whose solution is putting like a table tennis thing in an office.
But it's, we know that's not an effective
Yeah.
Not an effective thing to do, right? And there's the real cliche about the the pizza Fridays that you
Yeah.
start up and things like that, and things that are know not to. They do the opposite of the intention, and I think no one doing these things has bad intentions, but I think often it can really undermine morale.
I think so.
The worst example for me is always where it's not relevant to the business is having a dog-friendly office. Now, I've
Yeah.
been places where a dog-friendly office works, but that place was, one of the world's largest pet care companies,
Yeah.
and it kept them focused on the mission. Right now, there's clearly a correlation there. Having pets in the office really actually does help you keep engaged in that sense, because what you're working towards is, in many cases, it was better logistics for pet medicine, or easier access to, franchised pet care professionals, that sort of thing. And it keeps that reminder of the mission. But other places, when it's we're now a pet friendly office, 90% of the time I've seen that it's because the chief exec doesn't want to pay for daycare for their new puppy.
Yeah. I've had that experience of working in a pet friendly office where most
often
people
not.
didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, it's
Having
often
to
not a
keep-
human friendly office.
No, it's not. It wasn't. It wasn't. There was not even good seating to hot desk from.
Oh, someone's blooming poodle will be there.
Yeah. Some of the dogs couldn't talk to each other, and you'd just be trying to work at a bench.
I mean, office politics is a lot, but when it's between spaniels, I'm not getting involved.
No, exactly. It's so distracting, and it wasn't effective in any way. But I think it kind of turns into things you're told which are a benefit for you. Like I feel like a trend with a lot of companies is this like supposed benefits for you as an employee working there. I mean, most companies come with a list of like healthcare or wellbeing benefits or shares or whatever they want to offer you. But you also have these other benefits which you're told are good for you, and they're meant to kind of imply job satisfaction. So an example would be, the ethics of a company. You're making a difference, or, even if you're desperately unhappy with work, you're pointed out that, oh, well, this is important and you're helping people, or, well, you're working for the most ethical company you can. They're not real benefits for a person.
Yeah.
They're not, and if you've reached the point where you're unhappy with work, being told that repeatedly won't keep you there. It makes it worse, like you say. It's really damaging for morale because you're made to believe that you're the problem.
I think a lot of people can. I don't know. I guess post pandemic as well, people look at these job adverts and look at what's the list of benefits are. Free lunches. Well, that means that you never get a real lunch break, and I'm going to be dragged into a thing. Right, grab a salad now. We'll get on with this project. What have you? Right, and I think it has made people more cynical, definitely. And when things that are very basic and fundamental are high up the list of benefits, like 28 days paid leave. You go, well, isn't that statutory?
That's the law.
Here, well, in that case, the rest of it is going to be zero, isn't it? And that can be very frustrating, but ultimately, as a manager of people, it can be difficult to find ways to stretch what resources you have to keep people engaged, and I certainly have, and I'm sure you have, sometimes gone out of my own pocket when someone's needed that bit of G'ing up to get over a hump and get everyone back on track. And we shouldn't be doing that.
No.
But some good businesses I've worked at have offered a kind of no questions like budget spend that would be discretionary of like £20 or something on the week. Just to kind of cheer someone up or reward something, or help out someone maybe who's having a difficult time in a in an emotional sense, or when I've run offices or venues, things like that, then I would usually have kind of stashed somewhere a box of things that I guess might be essentials for people who might be having a time of need, as well.
Yeah.
So that would be, I would tuck a couple of tenors in there, some painkillers, some hygiene products, some snacks, this and that, right? Bits and pieces that might sometimes be, what, I'm gonna hit that box, and that's the thing I do at home as well, is have a couple of essentials stashed for a kind of the bad day, right?
Yeah. It's that human element though.
Yeah.
And I think companies getting further away in reality. Well, so I think like, we give you, you've got free food, you've got entertainment in your office, all these things that they don't really, that's not the heart of it. You don't know that people are having that tough time by actually talking to them and engaging with them. I think that's what we're getting further away with.
But you can't outsource, relationship building to a SaaS product.
No.
You can't have mates on. I mean, you could, but not in any way that's actually going to be meaningful in the workplace. So you can't have Uber for friendly colleague chat.
Yeah.
Uber for water cooler chat. I'm gonna take that to Y Combinator.
Yeah, I think you should.
Thank you. So I feel like we've gone in a very kind of touchy-feely direction.
Yeah.
And the problem with touchy-feely directions is those measurable results. And we kind of discussed making sure that everything we deploy for clients results in tangible benefits that we can say, right, here is the money you have saved. Here is the man hours. Here are the results, right? And that can be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
When it's things that are related to morale, and I guess you on your side of being more of a people leader, and myself being more of a product owner. We kind of have that both ways perspective on how to build out a good support organization, how to redevelop that customer experience. But I think there are often ways of using technology, using the tools you have to also develop that feeling in those relationships. Now, there's a well-known retailer who we both have had business relationships with, and I know their support lead quite well through conferences and things like that, and they have tried to develop a kind of personality actually for their customer service bot. To the extent that it kind of sarcastically, not sarcastically, I guess, but because people are kind of in on the gag, but I guess in an ironic way, joke about having the conversation with this character they've invented, and there's always that fallback in there that again was really pioneered by Jake at Hyperjar when he worked with Ultimate, of always having that fallback to could a person better help me with this, and making it clear at the start that conversation, that's the way to address this with the bot is I think I'd be better served by talking to a human here, and maybe even having a kind of confirmatory step would be an option sometimes of actually, this is something I can do very well, but I'm happy to put you through to a person, or whatever the options are. But giving it a bit of personality, you can use technology here in a way that customers are beginning to advocate for.
Yeah.
And sometimes there was an old Mitchell and Webb radio series sketch of someone calling up and said, "Oh, I need the repairman out. My car is broken down," and the call centre agent go, "Really? Oh no! Like, oh, you're not going to want that. God, I bet you really needed to get this to make your journey today. It's the last thing you wanted, having this broken down car and whatever you." If you'd pressed one and put your postcode in, then they'd be on their way by now. But what I'm here for is to care about this at you.
Yeah.
maybe you could even explicitly have that today. Yeah, talk to a robot, and the people are just there to go, oh, do you know, I'm really sorry about this. That's got to be a real pain for you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, anyway, I'll pop you back on to the bot. But if there's anything I can do, if you, I don't know how that would work. It'd be great though. You could have that, customers and your team.
Yeah.
Yeah, overreaction. Yeah, press 5. Someone to really be upset about this with you.
Yeah. 5 for empathy.
Yeah, why not? There's definitely businesses I've worked with lately that could use a bit of that. But also I've found myself getting very fussy lately as well, right? And where we both, where we have this business where we provide this kind of service to our clients and rethink these things for them, then it makes me, I think, even more intolerant than I frankly always have been of when things are done poorly. And I've had conversations with, people at businesses where I'm kind of talking them through, like, the way to handle this is like this, It's always the way, right? When you have expertise in a subject, then it's difficult to watch it being done badly to you.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have closed accounts with companies recently because I can't get through to a person.
Yeah.
I had a small investment account that I moved because of similar frustration, and I think everyone knows that that's a thing now.
Yeah.
That you don't have to put up with this.
No.
And a textbook thing that I always mention is no reply emails. If you're emailing someone from no reply at yourbusiness.com, and at the bottom it's don't email this back because this is unmonitored. Yeah. Well, if your customer wants to get in touch with you, then you really should be facilitating that, right?
Yeah.
And you need to have some deflection in place because you can't constantly be hand-holding all your clients. But if someone sees that and goes, gosh, I've been meaning to get in touch with them because my thing is broken.
Yeah.
And then you making that harder for them, that is going to make them upset. And we're in a world where, because we've gotten used to Twitter and things like that, where you can just message and expect to get someone to come back to you and say, oh, sorry about this, we'll give you a call, right? Or whatever it may be. Then just being broadcasted at is not tolerable anymore.
No, absolutely not.
And I think maybe we need maybe we need more technological solutions here, and I think certainly for businesses that use Zendesk, which is my specialism, then there's really no excuse not to have those emails routed somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And measure and what have you. You can always come back in an automated way on your first contact with, hey, we see you've got in touch, we'll get back to you when a human is available to review this, and you can phrase this like a non-robot. But in the meantime, you've mentioned XYZ. Well, here are our top knowledge base articles on XYZ, see if these solve your problem, and if you've got any feedback on this, then we'd also appreciate understanding,
Yeah.
And it's just an opportunity to gather that information, but also build that relationship further. That you're just denying yourself otherwise. You know?
Absolutely. Like, why send anything out for no reason at all, when you can just use it so easily as a tool? Getting people in that moment when they're ready to express at you how they feel is invaluable, good or bad. And denying people the chance to feed back to you is terrible. I think, and it's really hard when you're asking people outright, how are you finding it? No one likes customer satisfaction surveys.
No.
And people use that as a default way to measure that stuff. But I hate being emailed that or notified before I've even purchased something that I'm going to be sent a satisfaction survey. Or use any service like, oh, at the end of the call, can you hold on? Tell us how you did. I just hate that stuff so much. I want to give that to a person, or I want to write it when I feel like it.
Yeah. And
you should be given the option at every opportunity through our transaction.
Yeah. And one thing I find that these CSAT surveys almost never ask is, was your problem solved?
Yeah.
Are you leaving this conversation able to continue?
Yeah.
Like, and they these things aren't asked.
No, they're just like, how did we do?
Yeah. But actually, I mean, Apple were. I had quite a lengthy debate with an Apple customer service person, and then was sent a survey that actually was quite extensive, but it was too detailed, right? It took like 20 minutes to go through. There was question after question after question. Like, thinking back to your first message, did you find that, like, what? Like, why are you asking me this? This is insane. But they did at least ask, was your problem solved?
Yeah.
Like, are you able to continue using our product?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had a frustrating conversation with an energy supplier recently, particularly frustrating as this particular process is one that I designed at a different energy supplier that is unfortunately no longer existent, due to the apocalypse in the retail energy sector in the UK that happened as a result of regulatory changes and the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But what we one thing I've been dealing with this conversation is that I said, look, if you can't resolve this, right, I can switch to another provider, right? I can switch to another provider like that. It's all automated now, right?
Yeah.
What I'm asking is not complex. I know the details. I've provided all the information, and I just feel like, why don't why is it not evident to the person there right now? Your support person, your support agent, isn't necessarily aligned with the retention of the person they're having the conversation with, right? But these things should be connected, right? If I call up and I speak to your person, I've got a problem that needed solving, right? And I leave, not only to the extent that I don't feel the problem is solved, but additionally, like, I just go to a different supplier. This needs to be measured.
Yeah.
And I again advocated for this at another business I was working at, is when people close an account, then it's perfectly valid to say why. They don't have to answer. No. But I think it's okay to ask the question, is, what could we have done different? What's the rationale here? And yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of the times where people are surveyed are not the times where they're receptive to that. But a lot of the times where they should be asked more, or where they have information they want to provide, then sometimes that's not facilitated.
No, I think usually when you end an account or unsubscribe or do something, you have like a sorry you're leaving kind of come up. You're never asked before that point, is there anything we can do?
Yeah. What could we change?
What could we change now? We're sorry to see you leave, but do you want to talk to someone now? Can we resolve this? There's never that step at all. It's just bye.
Yeah, see you later. And we're back to the sales is sexy, retention is difficult.
Yeah.